Ladies and gentlemen, emergency PTR testing has to take place and has taken place. I woke up to messages yesterday that were like, uh-oh. Oh no, they've done some stuff. Have they made 8.3 super grindy, in which is something we're trying to avoid, hopefully. This is important. It's really important. It's what's driven away so many people, amongst other things, is the amount of mandatory content that your character has to do if it wants to take part in current content. If we think back to 8.2, it doesn't matter if you liked Najatar or Mechagon. You were going to live there for a while. And certainly if you were, say, a Raider or a Mythic Pluser, or you were somebody, you know, who needed good quality gear, you had to, like, live there. You had to spend hours and hours and hours there, and you got sick. It was like being thrust down your throat and sick to death of the place. And that's something Blizzard is trying desperately to avoid in 8.3. Probably, and hopefully, we have a sign of the solution here. Not to get your hopes up, this is pure theory craft on my part. That they've come up with something to sort of rescue the Essence system. Maybe. Early days. So what changed? What they did is they hyperinflated one of the two main currencies of 8.3, which is the coalescing visions. Now, I have no doubt I have misspoke a number of times in talking about these things. There's loads of things called visions and invasions and viz and the Zoths and things like that. So I spoke to a guy yesterday who watches my videos. He was on the PTR. He was doing his testing. He was doing his bit for King and Country. And he whispered me going, I'm so confused. I watched what's supposed to be happening, but I'm really lost. So I will go over it a little bit. Coalescing visions are the main reward for coming down to the two, not new zones. They're not new zones, but modified zones in Uldum and Pandaria, where N'Zoth is invading. So Uldum is one of them. Uldum, you come down to Uldum, and it's all tentacly, it's all purple. They've done a really great job, fantastic artwork and stuff, and they fleshed that zone out now compared to our earlier video on this. I just gotta say, I really do, massive shout outs to the news websites, particularly Wowhead. This patch has been the most changed patch we've ever had. Like, typically when we PTR test, you look at my Najatar videos, I did like 3, and that was a lot. Because typically what happens is Blizzard gives us the stuff, we test it, and it kind of stays the same. They may add 1 or 2 more quests to kind of point you in the right direction, but the whole place kind of just is what it is. 8.3 is so huge. It is so full of content. So much happening here, from Death Knight Glowy Eyes, which I'm sure is a big plus for many of you. Backpacks coming into it. We've got new features like Horrific Visions. We've got 2 zones that have been basically modified. We've got brand new raid coming. We've got Mechagon Mythic Plus coming. We've got all kinds of stuff happening in 8.3. And the list goes on and on if you're into the cosmetics and stuff. That's keeping up to date with it as it's changed. And Legendary Cloak coming into it has been a nightmare. I went through various news sites yesterday just to make sure I had all my ducks in a row. Learned a lot and saw like a point by point of how this is changing. Not to remember, the corrupted gear system is coming in 8.3. It's an enormous patch. Yet Blizzard's trying to make it non-intrusive, which is admirable. Non-intrusive. And I hope it goes down well, and I hope there isn't a lot of feedback from people saying, I really need to be handheld through all of this stuff because you're not forcing me to do it. Therefore, it feels like there's not a lot going on, which is crazy. Let's hope that doesn't happen. So anyway, what they've decided to do is they've really inflated the amount of coalescing visions you get. So previously, to enter Horrific Vision, which is a big feature of 8.3, these are the main visions that you will do. They take place in the Chamber of the Heart, where Magni and Mother is, and now Wrathion is. You need 10,000 coalescing visions now. Previously it was 1,000. In order to buy the item so you can do a Horrific Vision. And you can do them in a group, you can do them on your own. Everybody needs to have one of the items. So if you do it in 5-man group, all 5 of you need to have one of the items. And this feature then enables you to get things like your Legendary Cloak upgrades, right? So it's an important mandatory feature. They are a mandatory feature, right? You want that Legendary Cloak upgrade, of course you do. So this is a mandatory feature. So the way they've changed it now is to change it to be super front-loaded and getting access to all of the mandatory stuff really, really quickly. Even quicker than we saw in the last video where I was saying this is really alt-friendly. They made it even easier now. Now, there are some consequences to that, but it seems to be also enabling them to do other things. So previously, like a world quest, what would happen is you would go to either the Pandaria invasion or the Uldum invasion, and you would instantly get a Fill the Bar quest and then a number of dailies to go along with it. Both of the zones have dailies now. they've got rid of that. The fill the bar is gone, right? Not entirely gone, but it's gone for the most part. What they're doing now is weekly, on your first time visiting those zones, per week, the fill the bar quest will appear. So when you go to Mr. Pandaria, a fill the bar quest will appear, and you'll have a cache at the end of it, similar to an emissary box. And then when you go to Oldham, you'll also have one, right? So there's two. But once that's done, so whenever your server resets, if you log on and jump down there and do the fill the bar quest, that's it. It does not reappear for the remainder of the week. There's no more fill the bar quest. Good stuff. This is cool. All you'll have for every consecutive day until the server resets again is just daily quests in those zones to gain reputation. That's all you're going to have down there, all right? Again, trying to make it as non-intrusive as possible. So given that they've really inflated the cost of getting into a horrific vision, which is where you'll get your legendary cloak upgrades, they have boosted these weekly quest rewards, right? There's fill the bar weekly. So now when you do the older one, you get like 10,000 coalescing visions, which, as you can now guess, instantly gives you access to your horrific vision. Gives you some corrupted mementos, which is the second currency, which we'll talk about later, because, again, people are a bit confused on that one. And when you go to do the Pandaria one, you'll get another 5,000 coalescing visions and some more corrupted mementos, and then you'll have dailies on top of that. Mixed into this in terms of dailies, all right? So weekly, you're going to have this quest. Dailies does include the mini vision, and this is definitely where some people are getting hung up. Like, what is the purpose of the mini vision? The mini vision is a daily quest. It will either appear in Oldham or in Pandaria. It can be in either or, and it's a very tiny scenario, okay? So it's either the Ramakahan town or it's the shrine. And that's it. You have this very little area. Whereas the main horrific visions, which are Stormwind and Orgrimmar, are the entire city. This is just a very condensed little area. Now, something that happened to me yesterday, and this may have been in the game for a while, but there are so few people testing that I just didn't know, and I didn't see mention of it anywhere else. The mini visions are now shared. So I was in there, and then a bunch of other people started to come into it. And I was like, oh, crap, this is the first time. I've done lots and lots of these. This is the first time I saw people inside. And a lot of people, like 7 or 8 people, came into my mini little vision. I thought it was instanced just to me. Pros and cons to this. As a high-geared character, it's a little irksome. It's a very first-world problem, so I don't expect much sympathy here from most people. But essentially, if I'm in there and I'm AoEing it down, because all you get in a mini-vision, all they are is a little quest. It'll either be free 6 guys, kill 6 things, something like that. And you can get another 2,000 coalescing visions for doing the daily. Now, don't worry, does that mean I have to do this daily? No, because every consecutive day after that, it's just 1,000. And you need 10,000 to do a horrific vision. All right? So it's like you need 9 of these things. Well, you overlap, so 8 of them in order to gain 1 extra horrific vision. So it's not that big of a deal. It's really not. But what I noticed is that I'm AoEing everything, so obviously I'm wrecking the place. I notice people just run in and like flame strike and then run off and do their own thing. And just come back and collect all the loot for me killing everything. It's a first world problem, but it is what happens with shared areas. Something I'm pretty used to now in World Quest, and I'm sure many others are in the same boat. It's like, fucking hell, oh great, people are here to help me. We're going to clear this super fast, right, guys? No. They just tag and then they fuck off and do their own thing. And generally end up getting more loot. So it's definitely irksome, but it is something to note. It is shared. You don't end up in a group or anything. People will just appear and starting to kill things that you're doing. So mini visions, I just said, they have a weekly bonus as well. So the first one you do in the week will give you 2,000 coalescing visions. Coalescing visions. And then the ones after that are just 1,000. All right. So you get this extra little boost to them if you are capable of doing the daily quest. And again, they take about 2 minutes. You can spend a long time in there. And this is kind of where I'm pushing the message of how quickly you can get done. But that's more to the alt side of things. If you want to get as much resource as possible, as many coalescing visions as possible, and as many corrupted mementos as possible, you will want to spend extra time in these areas, because the enemies in there do drop some trickles of them. And I really mean trickles. We're talking like 1 to 2 to maybe 9 corrupted mementos, a few coalescing visions. Over time, you will definitely have more than somebody who doesn't bother with that. But the alternative, of course, is that you can come in, do the quest, and then leave. That's entirely up to you. It's how you want to play this out. It's the same with the horrific visions as well. So what you get is on the first time you go down there after the reset is you get 17,000 coalescing visions, nearly 2 horrific visions runs, and that takes you about 40 minutes. Now, you can spend a lot longer there. There are rares to be killed, which will drop a little bit more. No rep farming there. And on this note, I do want to bring up the rep farm, because we talked about that earlier in an earlier video. This is probably a work in progress, but as they've removed the Fill the Bar quest that you got daily, which gave you a big chunk of rep Mechagon style, and now all that remains is daily quests, that big chunk of rep is also missing. So I imagine they're going to roll it into something else, or they're still tweaking where it wants to go in order to make that work. But once you've done your dailies and you have these coalescing visions, that's when you're going to want to do at least one horrific vision. All right, at least one. Now, we talked about the Legendary Cape. The Legendary Cape was not a feature of BFA. It was not planned from the start. It's something they've had to come up with over the course of the development from 8.2 to 8.3. And as such, it's gone under a lot of changes. Because initially, it was turbo crap. Like, absolute turbo shit. It just had some stats on it, and it had this sanity, you lose less sanity thing attached to it. It's undergone a lot of changes since then. Most of them you probably know. So what it will do now is every week you can upgrade it, as we talked about a moment ago. You do this by collecting an item from Horrific Visions, killing N'Zoth, things like that. Although I will point out here, rank 1 to 5, because it goes up to 15, you can upgrade the cloak to 15. Rank 1 to 5 you can get by just running into the Horrific Vision, as I've shown you before, and just killing the boss straight away. And you can be in and out in 2 minutes. Simple as that. After 5, though, you do need to do one of the extra bosses in the Horrific Visions. There are 5 total bosses in the Horrific Visions. You're going to have to do a tougher area, and then we guess... I've talked to some people who haven't managed, because it's time-gated, to check it, but we imagine from 10 to 15, you'll probably need to do 3 or 4 bosses in order to get the upgrade item. I wouldn't worry about that too much, because your Legendary Cloak will be upgraded enough that you naturally get to spend more time in Horrific Visions anyway without it being too much of a struggle, and you will have naturally occurred getting Corrupted Mementos, which plays into the tech tree. Because Horrific Visions do come with a tech tree that you can level up, and that increases your sanity, increases the damage you do in these places, and so on and so forth, in order to make it quite easily doable. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just note that as your cloak gets stronger, at certain cutoff points, you will need to do something extra in order to get the upgrade item. All right? So it's just something you want to be aware of. It's not a big deal, but that's the way it's going to work. So... the Legendary Cape, what else does it do now? Well, it started off, as I said, a bunch of stats and this sanity drain resistance. So now they've moved away from the Heart of Azeroth. They really do not want you to deal with the Heart of Azeroth at all, really. You should be able to get it done very, very quickly and then forget about AP. It will still continue to up in item level, but it's no longer got like the concordance effect that was integrated into it. Instead, they've started piling more stuff onto the Legendary Cape to make the Legendary Cape more interesting. It's a good way to go. So even though you will have rank 15 on your cloak, you can still continue to upgrade it after that. And all it'll do is boost the Corruption Resistance. Corruption Resistance is a really important stat that you're going to get in 8.3 because it allows you to wear more corrupted gear without being affected by various affixes. You'll also notice they once again, for the 4th time, I think, changed the animations on the corruption effects. So certainly if you've seen the corrupted pool that drops, the last version of it was like a large black void defile looking pool. Now it's a circle with an eye, that like a turret that shoots you. So they're trying to make it really obvious that you shouldn't stand in there because something's shooting you. So they've done a good job there as well. So what does this all mean then? Well, it's boosted the amount of coalescing visions you get. Now, there are a couple of reasons I've seen game developers do this in the past. One of them is always that people like bigger numbers. And that's the limit of the conversation. I wish it was more in-depth than that, but it's not. People prefer to get 10,000 than 1,000, even though all the prices have been arbitrarily scaled up so it doesn't really make a difference. But people prefer bigger numbers. Look at the DPS squish. People were generally upset that I used to do millions of DPS. Now my character does thousands of DPS. What a scam. Although everything in the game has been altered to make that work just the same as if it was doing millions of damage, right? I mean, it makes no difference at all, but I get where they're coming from in that. The other reason that I see this happen is because they want to slide more items into the cost. And they can do that if there's a wider scale of items available. So let's say that they want to make essences purchasable with coalescing visions. This is a good reason to inflate the amount of coalescing visions you get. right? Because it doesn't really make a difference to the player whether they get 10,000 and it costs 10,000 to enter Horrific Vision, or whether you get 1,000 and it costs 1,000 to enter a Horrific Vision. Makes no difference whatsoever. So, but if you want to say slide in some essences that cost 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, that's far clearer than if you were to make them like one costs 80, one costs 120, and one costs 230. It's far clearer if you can just have these natural cutoffs in the thousands. Makes it much simpler for the player to deal with. Now, that's not in the game. I want to be super clear on this. That is not in the game, but it makes logical sense as to why you would want to inflate these numbers, especially as it makes the inflation look a little strange next to the corrupted mementos. So what are corrupted mementos? For those of you who don't know, why should you care about them? Corrupted mementos are the second currency. You will get some for doing daily quests, but you'll get very, very few. The main bulk of them comes from doing horrific visions. The tech tree costs corrupted mementos in order to level up in that. That's the currency you spend in the tech tree in order to get the bonuses, which will then lead to lasting longer in horrific visions, enabling you to get more corrupted mementos and so on and so forth, enabling you to finish the tech tree quicker, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, corrupted mementos at 25,000, which is a huge amount, by the way, absolutely enormous amount, will enable you to buy gem slots for your gear and also mounts and things like that. So corrupted mementos are the currency that you are aiming to get. Coalescing visions are the currency that allow you to get them. Okay, so that's the way this system is working right now. So the big change, two big changes that have happened this patch. One, they've really inflated the amounts of coalescing visions. That looks to me to be some way of enabling more purchasable options using coalescing visions. It might not be essences. It would be nice if it is. It might be some other cosmetics or gear that they're putting in the game. Who knows? Something on those lines. And they've also removed the fill the bar quests for the daily areas and now have made it into a very, very heavily front-loaded one-time visit process that will enable you to get a lot of these things very, very quickly. So that is what they're doing right now. I expect this to get more development. A couple of notes on this. Corrupted mementos that I just mentioned them now look really silly next to the coalescing visions because they haven't inflated those numbers. So you're seeing quests where you get like 2,000 coalescing visions, 10 corrupted mementos. Like, side by side, they look a bit silly, and Blizzard might be like, it kind of looks stupid. They may inflate those numbers, but also inflate the costs, so it kind of corresponds to the right sort of thing. Who knows how they'll go, or they'll just leave it alone. It's entirely up to them how they're going to do that. The other side effect of this, of course, is the rep gain. We're not seeing those big chunks of rep gains per day anymore that we were getting because of the Fill the Bar quest. Hopefully, they're going to roll that rep into either dailies, or they're going to roll it into something else, or they're going to figure something out. And hopefully, it's not a case of let's just bring back Fill the Bar, because it's the only way we can make that work. But they certainly don't want people spending months to get exalted because there's 3 or 4 dailies per day. Giving, I think last time I checked it was like 75 rep a piece, something like that, or 100, it might be 250, but not a great deal if you're looking to get exalted, that's for sure. So I'll keep my peepers on that as well. All right, guys, thank you for listening. Everything's fine. We can relax. Everybody sent me messages. It's fine. It's good. It's good. In fact, it's an improvement for many people. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.